So, welcome everyone. I have to say that this session is recorded forehand so that you know. So, this session will be recorded. You can ask questions through the chat if anything is unclear or you want to know something or anything. You can use the chat or the Q&A function. If you just want to say, hi, I'm here, where you're from, use the chat. If you have a question like the inhoudelijk for the content, use the Q&A. So we will use it and we will try to answer your question. We hope we can. And who is we? My name is Marisa. I work for the Information Lab and I'm here with my colleague Dan. And today we're hosting the webinar about fancy charts. And Dan, maybe you want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I hope you can all hear me well. So welcome everybody. My name is Dan. I work for the Information Lab as a Tableau consultant and trainer, and I work a little bit with Alteryx. It's nice to see certain people from Italy. Hi, Emma. And I see some people from the Netherlands, from Copenhagen, Germany, from India. So good to see lots of people from around the globe. I love working with Tableau and creating different types of charts. They might not all be super fancy, but yeah, there's a couple of tricks that I would like to share and hopefully, yeah, teach you a little bit on how to do them yourself. So we're going to take a little bit of time also, so you can also recreate them on the spot. I think, Marisa, correct me if I'm wrong, but we will be using the standard data source called Superstore that everybody should have available with their free, oh, actually for free with Tableau. So Superstore, if you have that, if you
Yes,
have,
that's correct. At least I prepared it like that, and I
yeah,
think you did as well.
perfect. I did the same thing.
Okay, great.
I work with the latest version of Tableau, so it might be that my Superstore data looks slightly different than yours if you're working with a slightly different version, because Tableau update those as well. Just thought I'd give that as a hint if your graph looks slightly different. And I'll do this webinar together with Marisa. And Marisa, maybe you can introduce a little bit more about yourself as well.
Yes, I can. I always find this a difficult question, but let's go ahead. I like to make things fancy just because I like it. That's why I also started Instagram with my data visualizations, just to add something fancy. But the most important thing is that you can gain insights from the things you do. So it should be secondary and not primary. And more about me, I like to be outdoors and I see it's sunny outside. So after this, I will go outside. So maybe it's night at your place. I don't know, but I like to be outdoors and on the water. And yes, about today, it's not our goal to impress you with see how fast we can do a lot of things. We're hoping that you gain something from it and that we can do it together and that you have an end result. So we could, of course, do things super fast, but that's not our intention. And if something is not clear, please feel free to ask it, and we try to help you. And if not, then we can maybe share some resources with you, so you, so you have some extra steps in this. And yes, so and if you are interested, this is the Tableau public of Dan. It's super small, but then if you look for authors Dan Verkerk, you will find him, and there are some of his visits here. I will not click on them, but you can do that later on, and we also share it. Okay. And I also see a topic around bars. We're going to discuss that today. And this one is mine. If you look for Marisa, then you will find mine. I have some like a marketing funnel dashboard, different type of dashboard. Some are fancy, some are not. Just so you know. But maybe we should start with why we use fancy charts and why not. Maybe you know this image or the original one. I really like this image. because in reality, most of the times I would really like to use fancy data viz, but in reality, um, it's mostly bar charts and line charts. And I also conducted like a little survey on Instagram. I think 20 people reacted, and the vast majority, like 2/3, they were team bar chart, line chart. So um, there are some things to consider. And I was wondering, Dan, maybe you can share something about this.
Yeah, I'm working for different companies. You do notice that if you want to get a message across, it's mostly about what the information is, and not so much as how does the information look like. So I think most people, but maybe I'm speaking out of turn, but most people will agree that the getting a certain information across is more important than how it looks like. Having said that, however, we do notice that sometimes management or people are impressed by something that looks really amazing, and then that helps you to get, in the end, to be able to sit at the table and share your information. So yeah, I'm team. Most of the time I use bar charts or line graphs, but I'm also all for making something that looks beautiful and gets the information across, as long as the fact that it looks beautiful doesn't hamper getting any information out of it. So yeah, definitely love to build fancy stuff, but sometimes it's you have to rein yourself in, I think, and particularly in business settings. I notice if you go over Tableau Public, you see some beautiful things, um, but sometimes things that I have at the moment when I'm working at a company little use for. So yeah, a good question from Marisa. If you'd like to respond in chat, yeah, that would be great.
Yes, we're curious about what team are you? Are you an experienced fancy chart creator, or are you trying to level up from the things you usually do? I do think it's fun to go beyond the standard things you can do and you can find. It's creative. You can use your creativity in this, and it's maybe beyond the beyond because it is beyond the standard options. You can indeed differentiate yourself and your work, so you will stand out compared to maybe other people who will just do the standard, like the standard thing, if there is such thing as the standard thing, because uh, it also depends on your data, of course, how the result will look like.
Yes.
um,
Yeah,
and
Johan Willems prefers the simplicity and the power of bars and lines. So he's team bar and line graph, I think.
yeah, I think that is a positive for the bar and the line. And what Dan indeed said is, in a business situation, indeed it can help you to gain some attention and that things look nice. But who said that a bar or a line cannot look fancy? So today we will combine actually those. So it will not be will not be creating a sunburst chart or something like that, because I don't think we can do multiple in this session, and we want to do it together and that you gain something out of it. So we have a few of them. One will be a histogram. I think that's the English word for it. And usually, if you make it in Tableau, you do one click and you're done. That's it. And I think it's maybe a bit of an overlooked one. So we will create a fancy histogram. We will also create a dotted line chart. I can show you them. I can show you them now. Maybe that's more easy. We will have a fancy histogram where you can adjust your size of your bins and your last bin. And we will have a fancy dotted line. I will not share that one. Dan will do that one. And we also will have a fancy bar chart with rounded edges and indicators. And maybe we'll have some more, but depending on the time, and we can show them to you. So if there are if there are questions, you can ask them, or otherwise we will start with the first tutorial, the first one. Is anything clear for you, Dan, as well? Because I believe you will build with us, right?
Yeah, so what I think would be good for all of us, I think, yeah, you can just show how it looks like and how we build it, and then we can follow along because it's should be Superstore. So I would recommend opening up Tableau, connecting to Superstore,
Yes.
so you can build along. And if you have two screens, that makes it a little bit easier, I think, or have one a little bit smaller than the other. Um, but I think yeah, it would be good if we all take a little bit of time to build along, so we know how does it work like, and
Yes.
um, yeah, in the end, you can use it tomorrow for your company.
Yes. That is our goal. So if you have Tableau open and you will click on sample superstore, so that will be your data source. Okay. I will go back. So um, we will start with the fancy histogram. So we'll just show you this one for a bit. Why is it fancy? Because it has nice colors. No, that's not the only reason. um, Usually, what happens when you build a histogram, you cannot have the control of your last bin, and if your uh, data is really wide, so that will say that you have most of your data here, and then a long tail on it. Then for some visualization, you would like to combine all of those in the last bin. So this is actually my 10 plus bin. My size is 10 plus. And there are, instead of that I had a lot of bins, I have combined them in one. And what I also created is a flexibility. So first I will show you, if I change this one to 8, then you will see this one is now 8 plus. Or if you change it to 20, that's the size of the last bin, you see that you have this long tail. Maybe I could even change it to 30. No, 25 will be my max, depending on the data. But I will place it back to 10. So this will give you some flexibility, which is nice. So your end user, maybe it's even nicer if I showed it like this. Your end user can change, and that's nice. And what I also did is that you can adjust the size of your bin. So now the size of my bin is 1. You can also make it 2. And you see your data changes, and so does the label. It changes as well. Okay. So, and this is the last part to make it. You can add that as well for some interactivity, like this, and my title updates. So this is something you could do, and your end user can all use this. So if you're ready, we're going to start to build this. And I have to say there are a few steps, so bear with me, and we'll making them one by one, and then in the end we'll combine them. So maybe there are a lot of steps, and if you cannot follow along for 100%, I also wrote a tutorial I can share with you. So yeah, we will try to do it, and I hope you have fun along the way. So let's start. Okay,
Yeah,
Dan, are
for
you
those
ready?
of you who do not, I'm sorry to interrupt, just got a good question. If you do not have Superstore, I will send a link in chat on the community where a sample of the Superstore in Excel is provided. So you
Yes.
can follow that link and maybe download that Superstore data whilst we're explaining how to build this.
Yeah, and maybe some general things I usually like to do. Before start building something, I will go to my to format, and then to, in this case, workbook, and I change the font for all of my normal text for my worksheets, tooltips, etc. And I like to have my titles like this. In this case, it's super Clarendon and in yellow. And because I said this once, I don't have to readjust this for every sheet. So this is just one little trick on the side I would like to add. Okay, so let's start. So in general, if you would make an histogram, for example, with sales, you need one measure, and you can go to the Show Me tab and click on histogram. There you have your histogram with your long tail like we discussed before. We are not going to do this. We're going to build our own. And I will clear it like this. And an histogram is a great way to show how your data is distributed. So maybe what's your age group, or your what is the quantity people buy. So I think it's a bit overlooked, but a really nice way to look at your data. And we're going to build that one now. And we will start with the parameters. So first we will create the parameters. And the first one will be just last bin size. And you can right click and then select create parameter. And I will open this one because I already have it here. Otherwise I will have it double. So, and I will give it a title. In this case, this adjust the size of my bins. So this will give me the flexibility of my bins. Data type float because it's a number, and I will leave it in this, and you can maybe give it current value 2 or 1, depends. Let's go for 1. Okay, so if you have this one, I will wait for a bit, and then you have your first parameter. That's the one you use. Okay. So if you have your first parameter, we're going to create the second one. Okay. The second one will be another parameter, data type float. And in this case, my current value will be 10. We can adjust this later, but for now 10 is fine. And you can give the title adjust last bin. I'll wait for a bit so everybody has this one. Okay. And then a last one. This one is just for fun, so you can edit your title. Maybe you will use it, who knows. This one I call adjust title. It's a string because it's text, and current value is the histogram tutorial. So if you created those 3 parameters, we will create first a calculation. And since it's a bit of a long one, I will copy paste this one also in the chat. So bear with me. And we will, in this calculation, we will use quantity because that is the measure I will be using. And it, like I said, it's a bit of a long one and it has some reasons. I could go into the detail, but I will just explain it to you briefly. It says that if your quantity is lower than your adjust last bin size, then you will calculate the size with your adjust size of your bin parameter, and otherwise it will just be last bin. And let me copy this to the chat so you don't have to type this all over like crazy. And it says, and what I did as well is I add a little plus to it. So it just says like, if it's smaller, then just give me the then give me this. Otherwise, um, give me the end bin. So this is what we use. And if you all have this, if you want to have more explanation, I can explain it later. But let's just use this one. So we have the size for the quantities, the quantity bin, and normally Tableau just creates them for you. But in this case, I want to have my own ending, my last bin. So this is why why you will create it like this. Okay. Then we need another calculation. And in this case, we will use quantity again, and we will create a calculation to trick the last bin. And in this case, you will see your quantity unless your quantity is equal to or higher than the parameter from adjusted last bin. And I will show this one. And I can also copy it in the chat. That's maybe a bit more easier than having to read it from the screen. So these are two calculation. I should have maybe put something in between. So it's this. Okay. So in this case, if your quantity is bigger than or equal to adjust last bin, then you will have the adjusted last bin, and otherwise you will have the quantity. So you will use this one. Okay. I hope everyone has this one. I will show it one more time just to be sure that we have it. Okay. Now we did the preparation, and we can build our histogram. Okay. So I use my quantity adjusted one, and then I will just create a histogram like I did before. Okay, so now I have this. And you can see that you have your quantity adjusted bin. You have it here. And we already created the parameter because usually you just have a size of the bin. I will open my bin. It's on the left-hand side. And you will click on edit. And you will have a number or a suggested size of bin. But you can replace it by a parameter. And then you can adjust the size of your bin. So that's what we're going to do. Open the bin field you just created, and the size of the bin will be your parameter. Adjust size of bin. Okay. So if you have this, you can bring your quantity bin to.
Lawrence is asking if you can show that one more time with the drop down, I think.
Which part?
Well, they asked this question during this particular, adjusting the size of the bin. So if you could show those one more time, like how does it look normally, and then adding that parameter.
Yeah, it could be if you have an older size that it isn't there, but to be honest, I usually didn't look at it, and only recently, so I'm not 100% sure if it's a new feature. So if you cannot find it, it could be a new thing, but I couldn't find this written in the how do you say it, the Tableau newsletter.
No, I think this is adding the parameter is fine. It's just I think Lawrence is just asking like, hey, can you show that one more time what you did there and why?
And this is to get more flexibility. So usually there's just a number and only the one who's creating the dashboard can change the size of the bins. But in this case, it's a parameter. And how did I create the bin? I did it by, I will take this away. Okay. I went to the show me screen and I clicked on a histogram, and then it creates a bin automatically. So this is what I did. So I can show it maybe once more. You, for example, you have your sales, and then you click on histogram, and then you will have automatically your bin, and you can find it in the left-hand side when you look for bin.
And another way that you could do it, if it's a calculated field and it's not a bin, you can right-click your measure and drop down to the part where it says create, and where it says calculated field, it says group, but it also says bins. So in your data pane on the left-hand side, when you right-click and go to the top where it says create, yeah, there is, you can show, yeah, create, and it
You
says
can do,
bins. So there's two ways that you can create these fields to become bins.
yeah, you can do it indeed in both ways. I like this is the only time I actually use show me, because it's like click, it's so easy.
That's true.
So let's see. Okay, then what we can do is I will have my quantity to the label because I want to see % of total. I will just bring my quantity, because that's the one we're using, to label, and then I choose quick table calculation % of total. What I did is I direct my quantity to my label here. Then I chose quick table calculation and then % of total. So that's what I did, and that will give me a % of total from what's in the view. And if you like smaller numbers, how you say it, behind the comma, you can also adjust this, just your preference. And then if you click on label, what you could do is click font and then match mark color to make it just a bit more nice. Maybe you will even give it another color, maybe the bright yellow like we did before. So you could do that. Just make it a bit more nice. But we're not there yet. We have to do a few more steps. Let's see. In this case, you can how do you say that? You can use the bin to discrete. I like the way it looks a bit more, but maybe Dan, you can maybe tell me what your preference is in this case.
So with the discrete, the great thing is you have that little space between your headers, but if you create it into a continuous value, you can make it just a continuous value again.
Yeah, it's just like your preference, but we have some more charts to do. So if we're going on, I just got a little message from you. We're just going on with this one, and then if there are questions later on, we can always answer them for this one, if that's okay with you. Okay, then it doesn't look like the one I created before. So what I also like to do is I use the format, and then what I like to do is I remove some lines here, because maybe you cannot see it, but you have those tiny lines here, just to make it look a bit more nice. My axis rulers and usually the grid lines and zero lines, I take out. You don't need to do this, but just to make it look a little bit more nice in my experience. Um, let's see if it actually worked. So I will show my parameters on the side. Maybe I forgot something. Let's see, adjust bin size. Hey, it works. That is super great. I hope it works for you as well. Maybe adjust size of bin. This also works. Okay, so let's continue with the fine tuning. In this case, I will hide my header, and I'm doing that by right clicking on it, and the same goes for the quantity adjusted. One thing I'm missing is um, the size of my bins, because now I don't see them, and I would like to know what the size of my bins is. Then I need to bring that one on the label.
So Bart, if you want to show a parameter to the side, if you go on the left-hand side to your parameters where they exist, right-click the one that you want to show, and when you right-click a parameter, you get the show parameter value all the way to the top. Yeah, perfect, Bart.
Okay. So what we actually need to do now is the the quantity bin we created. That's this one. I will drag that one to the tooltip. And let's see, I have my quantity percentage, and I will also drag adjust my tooltip by clicking on tooltip, and the window is to the left. Okay. Now it looks a bit like this, and it would be nice to make a whole sentence out of this. I could do something like in the bin size, and then you have your size of your bins. This one, and then you could do there are, and then the quantity like this. Instances, and then this and this percent, like that, and then make it like a whole sentence, like this. Maybe even give it a color to make it a bit more nice, something like this, that you can really see where it's coming from. And now you have in the bin size 1 to 2, so you have your labels, 2 to 3, etc., like this, and your 10 plus bin, and that can also change like we saw before. Now you have your 5 plus one, and now you have your fancy histogram. And I can share the tutorial in the chat, so you can read it later, and then I will give the controls to you, Dan, so you can show the fancy dotted line.
Thank you, Maurice. Yeah, it was a great session. Personally, I was unable to do a copy paste action. It looked very simple, the copy paste, but my Tableau didn't accept the calculated field that you sent, unfortunately. Something to do with bad characters. So, yeah, I couldn't follow along, unfortunately. What I will do, I should be able to share my screen.
Yeah, I think I should stop share, then you can do
Oh,
it.
I can immediately take over already. You should be seeing my screen on the right hand side. Yeah, perfect. Let me see if I
Yes,
can.
and I will send you the link to the tutorial so you can read it on later if you, not only to you, but to everybody, so you can read it on later. And then, yes. Okay, let's go.
Perfect. So it is a little bit this time of year where it's the end of the year, and sometimes our management is asking how are we doing compared to last year, or so they want to compare sales numbers from 2020 with 2019, for instance. But we can also say, hey, uh, 2019, we want to make sure that when we are comparing them, as in this graph that I'm showing, we want to show not just by color, but also using that so-called dotted line that we are making a comparison. Tableau doesn't have dotted lines straight out of the box, unfortunately. Um, and I'm going to show you, in my opinion, what is the simplest way. There are a few other ways where you use cosinuses and a lot more difficult formulas, and you need to adjust a lot of your data. This would minimize the amount of data that you would need to adjust. There are, of course, some caveats on why it wouldn't work, or some sort of, how you say, extra things to be mindful of. But yeah, this is basically creating a fake dotted line, but it looks like a dotted line for our end users. And that's sometimes something that we do with when we're building our more fancy charts. Actually, what we're doing is we're abusing functionality within Tableau to build something that doesn't exist. And let me just go into build mode. For those of you who have a very sharp eye, you can already kind of see what I'm doing. What we will be needing for this to work is we'll need to use both a combined axis and a dual axis. The fields that we will be using are two fields that I've created, but you can also think of them as saying, okay, I have my own value in sales and I have a target value in sales. If you have those two values in your original data set, you could use those two. In this case, what I've built is just one field, very simple to say, if the year of my order date is 2019, then I want to see the value of sales. So I now have a field that just shows the sales of 2019. Let me see if I can find the chat screen because it wasn't showing me before. That. It doesn't show me chat more. Yes, I want the chat function. There we go. So I'll post this into chat. Hopefully you can copy this as well, or have already typed this in yourself. If you have an older set of the sample superstore that doesn't have 2020 or 2019 data, you can adjust these to have the year that you desire, of course. So myself, I'm slightly lazy, so I would right click duplicate, but you can create another copy that only has the data for 2020. So basically what this does is we now have two fields that only have data for a whole year and only 1 year, and that's the years that we're going to be comparing. So I will make a new sheet and we'll start building from there. The first thing that I'll do is quickly grab our order date, and I will show you that as I want to have per month know what the sales was. So I'll just drop the field as a non-continuous because I only have 2019 and 2020. I want to be able to compare those two. So I want my January values to be on top of one another. So from my data pane, I will scroll to my sales 2019. So on the left-hand side where my data pane is, I will drag it onto rows, creating that beautiful axis. So this is our 2019 data. And the first thing that we'll do is we'll drag 2020 right on top. So we have that dual axis. So I let go, and now we have our two lines of sales data. So I'll wait until you've created those fields and have been able to do this. I will do this once again in slow motion just by going back. So I'm grabbing my order date and I'm doing a slightly sneaky trick, which is if in Windows you can either right click, or if you use a Mac, you press the options button and do a left click. So in Windows, that will be a right click, and you drag the field onto columns, and it gives you this particular field and this menu where you can see, do you want your data to be continuous, discrete, or have your month discrete order date? So I'm choosing month, and as a blue discrete value. I hit OK. Then I will search for my sales 2019 from the left hand side of my data pane, drag it onto the row shelf, and let go. I'll do the same with the sales of 2020, but I don't drag it to my rows shelf, but I'll actually drag it onto the axes that already exist and create a combined axis. So both of them are together now, but I still don't have those dotted lines. So the trick here is now to say, okay, the line that I want to have as dots, I will drag it once more, and instead of dragging it once more on that combined axis, I'm actually going over to the other side, to the complete right-hand side, until we have those dotted lines, which is sort of predictive of what we're going to do. And now let go, creating a dual axis. They're not aligning yet, those axes. So what I'll do, I'll right click, synchronize, and I'll immediately hide the header because we do not need on the right hand side that axis. So I'll right click once more, show header turned off. But now all we have is basically for 2019, I have two lines, both of them are gray. So we see here, if I go, I'll see my marks card is one is for measure value. As we can see, the measure value, which is on the left-hand side. And we have our sum sales 2019. And on the right-hand side here, on our row shelf, we have that sum sales of 2019. Well, instead of a line graph, this is the simplest. Either choose square, circle, shape. Both, all of them will work. I'll choose a circle for now. And as you can see, it's creating those beautiful gray circles. Now, the last trick is we remove measure names from color, but only for the sum sales 2019 marks card. I'll remove that. I'll click on color. I'll choose white. And as you can see, there's already some discoloration happening, or actually some sort of dashing happening. So we would need to adjust the size of those circles, because actually that's what we're doing. We're actually overlaying white circles on top of the line graph that we're having. You could do the same. You could choose squares, which sometimes make it a little bit nicer, like that cutoff, a bit more square. So, or you could use a shape. And the cool thing about shapes, I think, and I hope you can see me zooming in. The great thing about shape is it shows a little bit of value in the middle of that color. So this is an open circle. And the cool thing, it looks even more like a dotted line, I think. So it catches that attention. So either use shape or you could use circle, and you can adjust the size of your circle. The downside of this is the bigger your circle, and you can see that at the bottom left of my graph, it also goes over those blue lines. So this is a little bit of a shame of having that circle there, but this is a quick way of creating that dotted line, even though no dotted lines exist for, at least for now, for line graphs. There are more complicated ways, but in my opinion, this is the fastest way of doing this. So I hope you've all been able to follow along, and I will quickly show you one more tiny trick. Um, this is something that I have used in the past. It's not a dotted line, but a color variation. Um, it could happen. I had to show the data for a whole year, but the last quarter or the last 2 quarters were still up in the air of we're not sure if this is the actual data. Um, you would create your fields as per normal, so you have your sales. In this case, I also created a Q4 field. So I'll show you what that looked like. Just to make sure that I only have my quarter 4 data in there. You could do the same for quarter 4 and 3. It doesn't really matter. In this case, we create another dual axis. So my sum of sales and my sum of Q4. And actually what I'm doing, I'm overlapping those lines of Q4, and they're going to end precisely where 2020, the wholesales of 2020 is ending. And I can adjust that color by going to edit color. I have those two colors. The cool thing is I did the exact same color for 2020. As for the sales Q4, I double clicked that and I just turned it up lighter. Clicked OK, apply. And then you can see that the Q4 lines are now sort of a lighter color. And that way you can explain to your end users, Q4, we still haven't closed Q4 or we haven't closed that last month. So the data is not completed yet, but this is sort of what we're thinking it's going to hand over to. So I think these are two great variations of showing this is either incomplete data or this is a comparison data. So those are two variations I would definitely think you could use in your business applications. So I think that's it for the dotted line. So remember, actually what we're doing is we're overlaying those line graphs with dots. Neat little trick, I think, to have those dots in there, to have those dashed lines. So Maurice, I think I'll hand it over to you
Yeah.
for the last bit.
Yes, I think we can just do a little one and then maybe have some time for questions.
Yep.
As
And
it is,
otherwise I can show that Zoom version.
oh, that's maybe also nice. Then I like that one. Maybe you can do your Zoom version.
Yep.
And then I will write a blog about the fancy bar chart. Then I can send that to you later. I
We
really
can do
like it. So
we can
let's
do
do it.
both. I'll quickly show you the Zoom, and if we have time, I think we should have time. Maurice will show you the rounded bar chart because those are great as well. Um, okay, Gerko says indeed, if you don't have that old data, that's perfect. So this is a trick that I've seen happen at, I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was Iron Viz Europe 2019 in Berlin, um, which was a great use of new uh, fancy technique of pretending there is a zoom button in your dashboard. I've just created a quick dashboard where we have the profit per state, we have profit at category, and I have profit over time. So this is all about profit. Select a state to filter. So I could click state, everything filters. Let me go into presentation mode because it always looks better. So I can click on these, but it also says click on the magnifying glass to see city detail. So I have this magnifying glass on the top right corner. And it says also click to see city level. If I click this, I suddenly see a sort of zoom in of, in this case, I actually don't know the state by heart. This is Colorado. So this is again Colorado, but then I see the different cities within Colorado, how much profit they've made. And the size is also an indication of profit. So they're sort of similar to one another. I can still click in my older viz, which is not the zoom in, so to call, and I can close that zoom button as well. So what this is I'm quickly going to show you. This is, and I'll have to go to container vertical. This is a floating container. This is something, I think it's been around since 2019.3 or 4, if I'm not mistaken, which is any floating container has the added option of, where is it? It should be, why is it not there? I'll just put in a new one, vertical container. There's the add show hide button. So that means that I can have a button that I've just created to show or hide a certain sheet, or in this case, this floating sheet. And I can edit this button as well. Give it an image button, or it can be a text button, and I can even choose what type of image I'm getting to when an item is shown or when the item is hidden. In this case, when it's hidden, it has that magnifying glass, has a picture. And this is a great way of pretending there is a zoom function, whilst actually all you're doing is you're overlapping your dashboard with a whole floating sheet. This is a great way of showing extra value to your end users. I think I've built them, or I've seen people build them with the magnifying glass all the way to the top right button of your visualization, and actually having two vises, one on top of the other, Because you could imagine if your floating sheet is as big as your entire dashboard, then actually you have two dashboards in one place. Um, so I think it's a great way of adding that extra value to your dashboard. So it's very quickly just to give you that hint of using the show height indicator as a sort of zoom in functionality and pretending you're actually zooming in on a map. So yeah, that's it. I think Maurice, you might have still have time for your rounded bar chart, or if there's other questions, and we can answer those questions.
Yeah, we'll just start, and if there's a question, we can answer them. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Well, this is the idea. Everything is rounded, fancy, etc. Even this is actually a background. I mean, uh, you can create those templates very easily, and it looks polished. You don't need to do it, but it's like a nice little trick that you can work indeed with containers as well. But how did I create this bar chart with rounded edges? Well, I think I used the sales for this one, and I sliced it by category or subcategory to be precise. Now you have just your normal regular bar chart. So what I'm going to do now is I click in my columns, I type in 0 and press enter. And I will make this an average like this. If you have this, you will take your average of 0 and you will drag it on top of the on this bar, on this axis, and you let it go. It looks like this. This is correct. Then you choose a line, and you have very weird looking lines now. They're a bit diagonal. And then you take your measure names and you draw it to path. And then take your size, make it maybe a little bit bigger. And then again, you can hide or show your header. Maybe you want to see your labels, yes or no, then you have to adjust them. This has a bit of a wide gap, so you could even adjust that later. And I will do it again from the start. Well, the undo button is very nice. So what I did, I took the average of 0 and I brought it to the sales axis and I let it go. And then you see two rulers like this. And then you will share your axis. Next step would be indeed to go to the line again. And then your measure name to path. And then this is actually a line with rounded edges. And then you make it a bit bigger, like this. And then, of course, you can delete your background. You can show the header, maybe even hide field label for rows. You can adjust it to your liking, just like this. And then you can have a bar chart like this. And if there are any questions, we can answer them now. And otherwise, I can also show you how this tiny thing is created, like the little dot. Sometimes you want to see if something is performing well, and you could use an indicator for that. Not sure if there are other questions. How to add those. Nice tip to use show height. Oh, nice compliment, Dan. I also like that tip. And I can also show quickly how to add the profit ratio indicator. You need to write a formula because you will compare two things. In this case, I'm saying if my profit ratio, and you should have the profit ratio in your sample superstore, and otherwise you will create a ratio. it is important that you compare one thing to the other. If this is smaller than or bigger than this, then give me a dot, otherwise nothing. And in this case, I used the parameter because then you can slide it, but you could also just type in like this. So you compare two fields. And if it's the case, then give me this dot, and otherwise you don't have it. What will usually happen, because I will, let's put this to a slider a little bit bigger. What happens now is that those are meeting the condition, but they are all like this. And now I can see them, but I want to have them in front. And what you can do then is take this header field, the subcategory, you say duplicate like this, drag it in front, then you can place the indicator in between. Don't forget to sort like this by field, and we had the what was it, sales. Okay, now it's sorted, and now you don't need it, but it splits it anyway. Show header, you take it away, and then you have your your fancy rounded bar chart. And then you can even, if you created a parameter like we did before, you can even make it adjustable like this. So this is just a small tip, and I don't think there are a lot of questions, or are they? And how do I get the dot? On the Apple's Alt-8, and sometimes when I'm in doubt, if I cannot find a symbol or anything, I will just Google like arrow symbol, and then you usually see a lot of symbols, and then I just copy paste one. You see it's already purple because I clicked on it, an arrow or a big circle symbol, and then you have a lot. Yeah.
That's a great tip. I use that a lot as well, like you said.
Yeah. Okay, I think it's time. If there are any questions, please feel free to do so. You can also add me on Instagram, and then I can also maybe show you some things where you can see things. And I also share the link to our public profile. And then, I hope you liked it, and please let us know.
There is a question from PC to show the indicator formula.
Yeah, I will. Yeah.
After that, I will also give you guys a little bit of a hint on rounded bar charts and when not to use them.
So this is actually what I did, like compare something with somebody else, and if it meets the condition, then you will have a dot, and otherwise you won't. So that's what you do, and you could even do like a flower symbol. You could do a lot of things, but use your imagination. Yes, and then what I indeed did is format, and then I made it really big, 20, and like I could also make it yellow like this. And you can indeed change it to other symbols. If it's in the Bing Ding symbol list, like the standard symbols, you cannot use emoticons, but you could use like the normal symbols. I even used the flower. And I'm not sure if you could do a company logo. I don't know that, but there's also, maybe there's a workaround. I don't know.
You could choose maybe, I'm just thinking if you could use shapes at the beginning, but then you won't have bar charts. So that would be a little bit more difficult.
Maybe it's also really small to see a company logo. And maybe you don't want to show it. If something is doing bad, then maybe you don't want to see the company logo. But if it's doing good, you can do it.
So yeah, can I show one little side note with the rounded bar chart? I'm just gonna share my screen if that is okay.
Yeah, sure. No problem.
I will share my screen, continue, and it's the one
You
on
can
the
just
right.
take it over. Yep.
You should be seeing my screen, which has a Tableau overview, correct?
Yes, I can see it. Yeah.
Perfect. So I've followed along with Marise's instructions. I've built those rounded bar charts. The only thing that I'm currently not, or maybe have a little bit of an issue, is as you can see, I've set in a constant reference line, which has the value of 206,966. And by the looks of it, storage at the moment, storage has exceeded that value. And what I'll do, I'll show the entire view. So it's a little bit bigger. And I think with size, we could make it a little bit fatter. So both binders, I believe, binders, tables, storage has far overseeded to 206,966. But if I show you the mark labels, and you can see that tables actually has the value of 206,966,
Yeah.
whilst looking at the reference line, it almost seems that it's over that with the value. So because what we're doing is that dot that is created, actually this is creating a dot at the end, as you can see when I hover with my mouse, and that dot is, the middle of that dot is exactly centered on the value of the reference line, or actually of the value of my mark, which in this case is 206,966. And therefore everything to the right of that is, which is where Tableau is drawing the circle, is actually not where the value is. So if you are using reference lines, I would keep away from rounded bars. And the same if you are using the axes, because if you're not using the axes, it's perfectly fine. I'll remove this as well. It's perfectly fine as a comparison, or even when you do show the labels, you can compare those labels.
Yeah.
And I'll
To
just
see
have
the
it at the line
proportion of
ends
things.
and not at the
Yeah.
start. Actually, that is the start apparently. That's cool. Um, so then we can definitely compare the values to one another. But if we are showing an axis, um, then I would steer away from these rounded bars because they kind of skew your information. I think that's also what we said at the beginning. As long as it adds to showing more information instead of detracting or even showing bad information, then we shouldn't be building these fancy charts, so to speak.
Yes.
And Gerco would like us to provide a calculated field for percentages, so the profit ratio. Profit ratio, I have that ready to go. I can edit that. It's either you can type it as the sum of profit divided by the sum of sales, and also copy paste this in the chat so you'll have that ready to go. So that is profit ratio. So it's the sum of profit divided by the sum of sales. And if you name that profit ratio, you won't be able to get that. Or is it? Wait. The percentage, which is a parameter, Maries. I think that's the parameter
Oh
that you
yeah,
have created.
that's a parameter indeed. Yeah.
Sorry, Gerko, I was misunderstanding your percentage question.
Should I show it or?
Yep, if you can.
And then we will round up because we're taking extra time.
A little bit of extra time.
Can you see my screen?
Yep, we can.
Okay. What I did is actually it's another parameter, edit parameter, and what I did, um, I called it percentage, and it's a float, and the minimum is 0 and the maximum is 1 because it's a percentage. And if you will set percentage here, you can um, choose a number between the 0 and the 1 to like current value, maybe 0.05. And then it's 5%. Yeah, we use commas and not dots. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes confusing. And so you can type it in like this, and then you have your adjustable percentage where you can compare with. Okay, so that is the one we used in the indicator one. But you can also just type it in. But it's nice to have a slider to be able to change this.
Yeah, this gives your end user a lot more flexibility of depending on, okay, maybe our goals have changed over the year. You can imagine sometimes that happens if a massive virus just
Yeah, no,
basically paralyzes the whole world, then your goals might change, and then you can have that indicator for your end user to be able to change that as well.
yeah, yes. So yeah, so I hope we answered your questions and that it was informative and that you liked it. And if not, you can also let us know. Next week we have a session on LODs,
Yeah.
calculations. If you don't know them, maybe it's interesting to come because you can do a lot with them. Um, and you can look at our. I posted it also in the chat, but you can subscribe via the meetup, and you can look at our public profiles, Instagram, wherever. So yeah, we would be happy to see you again, and really appreciate that you took more than 1 hour of your time to join us.
And thank you also for participating in
Yeah.
chat, because that makes our jobs a lot easier. And thank you for your wonderful questions, and a little bit of yeah, your opinions as well on what you would use. So I hope to see you next week when we're doing level of detail calculations, seeing how they can help you do different types of analysis.
Yes.
So you're all very welcome, and thank you also for your time.
Yes. Okay. And then I will end the webinar. So thank you. Thank you very much. And oh yeah,
Yes,
we will share the recorded video. It will be on the YouTube. I posted, and I think we will also send like a lot of emails, not a lot, but we will
yes,
send an email with the information. So
yes.
yeah,
You will be. We will reach out to you, and tell you
yeah,
the link where to find the YouTube on this recording.
yeah. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you next time. So bye bye.
Have a great day. Bye.